Viewers, you are welcome to your favorite program, Eyewitness. As you are aware by now, this is a conversation with a guest who stands out of the ordinary. Somebody who has devoted their life to promoting the public interest, public good, living communities better than they found it. This is therefore a program that has a narrative that not all Nigerians are corrupt, are selfish, are only interested in self-aggrandizement. We try to tell the story of the large number of Nigerians who have spent their entire life in public service. Our theme today is the crisis in Nigeria's university system. And we have as our guest somebody who spent 40 years in Nigeria's university system, working, striving, and engaged to improve that system, to make sure he lives it better than he found it. However, we do know the crisis in Nigeria's university system. It may be a vain hope in these days to imagine somebody will leave the university better than he found it. However, our guest will explain his views and understanding on the crisis in our universities and pathways towards resolving that crisis. His name is Nuhu Yakub. He's been a professor of political science for a very long time. He has been vice chancellor of a number of universities, and much of his adult life, or all of his adult life, have been devoted to the university system. Professor Nuhu Yakub, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Prof.
We always start this program by asking our guests to introduce themselves so that the viewers will know them better. Well, we always start from where you were born,
okay,
where you did your primary school, just to get a sense of where you are coming from.
Thank you very much. Well, I was going to say that you had already introduced me, so there was nothing else to add, but since you say where I was born, you didn't mention that. I was born in Okene, on the 3rd of March, 1951. And before I started my primary school, I was sent to the Quranic school, very close to my house. And one of the best, if not, one of the best, as also one of the oldest Quranic schools, which was headed then by a learned sheikh called Sheikh Ahmad Rufai, at Idoji quarters of Okene. And then it also happened by sheer coincidence that in 1959, when I started primary school, it was his primary school called Nurul Islamic School, which was aimed at combining both Western and Islamia knowledge, and were the pioneers. My contemporary, who also went to school at that time, he also recently retired as a professor of history at Bayero University, Ahmed Rufai Muhammad. Well, there's no relationship with the owner of my Quranic school, but we plus others, started the primary school. And the good thing, which I will have to mention at this point, is that our educational system then was combined with, what I would say, an encouragement to us to appreciate, labor. In other words, we'll go to class in the morning. After some hours of teaching and learning, we also come back to help those who are building the foundation of the school. And that's how we started. And, it actually also prepared us for, appreciating, hard work and also ability to contribute to building, and not just, houses, but institutions. And that has helped a lot. When it was time for me to go to secondary school, I started late because the primary school was considered to be owned by somebody who was not a supporter of the leading political party then, Ibra Tribal Union. And therefore, we did common entrance twice. All of us in the class, were considered to have failed. So, but somehow, my Islamic, Islamia teacher, or founder of Islamic school that I attended, encouraged me, and eventually found an outlet for me to go to secondary school. And I went to School for Arabic Studies in Kano from 1967 to 1971, which also combined with learning Western education combined with Islamic education. And I was lucky. We were lucky, those of us who attended school, which was one of the oldest Islamia, inclined or oriented, secondary school in the north, at that point in time. So I can speak Arabic. I can also understand, quite a lot, in Arabic. In fact, when I sit down to read the Quran, it's only very few words that I'll have to go to the dictionary to find explanation for what I read in the Quran. So after that, when I finished in 1971, I qualified as a grade 2 teacher. I went to teach, and coincidentally again, I went to my alma mater, primary school, to teach, for about 1.5 years or so, and then got admitted to Advanced Teachers College, also in Kano.
Well, before we go to that, tell us a bit about the Okene of the 1960s. What struck you?
Yeah,
what do you remember?
What I remember is that it was, a well-knit society, very small in population size, at that point in time, and virtually everybody knew one another, and we didn't have, any. We don't have, infrastructures that were spectacular. Our road was untarred, and it was also a major road. In fact, these days you cannot go to, the southeast, Edo State, and even, up to the south region without passing through Okene. It's a major hub now, road hub, to these areas. But it was more or less a rural society. Nigeria was not as cosmopolitan as it is. And with time, schools cropped up. We had two major post-primary schools then. The government secondary school, which was converted, renamed Abdulaziz Atta Memorial College. After one of the graduates from the school, who happened to be secretary to federal government of the Federation during the General Yakub Gowon's regime. So when he died, they named the school, after him. We had that one, and we also had the Okene Teachers College, which has been converted to a secondary school after change in policy of government. Largely, Okene, was a small, more or less a rural area. But of course now, things have changed quite a lot. We have many schools, both in terms of Western, and also the Islamia schools, are still also, springing up.
Okay, you are talking about Advanced Teachers College?
Yeah, Advanced, yes. I went to Advanced Teachers College, which is now College of Education, Kano, where I read history and Arabic. And, that's also, helped me to, have, quite some deep knowledge in the Arabic language. Then after that, our set of NC graduates in 1977, we went to 1977, yes. Our set was the first set, 1976, the first set to be, asked to go to NYC. So I did my NYC. I was also posted to Kano, after which I got admission to go and do my first degree at Bayero University. And we also turned out to be the first set of students in 1977 that took off, that studied in Bayero University as a full-fledged university instead of college of, university college under Ahmadu Bello University. Yes, so we are the first set. So in a sense, my life has been one of a first pace setter. Primary school, and then, we went to NYC as, the first graduate of NCE part of the, the NCE group that went to NYC, and also the first set of students to start at Bayero University as a full-fledged university.
That's very interesting. Today you are also Sarkin Malamai of Okene. What does that involve?
Well, I have been conferred with the title, but I have not been, I have not gone through the coronation. And what happened is something that is also interesting. The current Ohinoyi of Ibraland, gave me the award. But it got to a point that politics, came into it, and friends advised that I should not go for coronation, and we have kept it muted since that time till now. But maybe there will still be time for me to be coronated as the Sarkin Malamai of Ibraland. I guess the title was chosen on the basis of my track records, up to the time it was awarded.
Okay, tell us about your university career.
Very interesting. I guess that our knowledge of one another started at that point.
Yes.
We got to know one another, and we are part of the leftist students, as it were, in the university, during my university days. And we had, the progressive, African Progressive Students Association. And we had contact with, our comrades in ABU, in Ife, as well as in Ibadan. Then we had, scholars, like Dr. Bala Usman in Zaria. We also had Dr. Shego Shoba in Ife, and some of, some of the progressive scholars also in University of Ibadan, and they tried as much as possible to actually also get us, involved, getting the knowledge as well as the practice of, Marxism. And we really believe then that we are the vanguard for changing the Nigerian society, and we went into it with conviction, commitment, and dedication. And I remember once, we will go as far as Bauchi to go and hold meetings, and we'll get, our comrades from these other universities that I mentioned, coming all the way from the south. And we're all committed to changing this country for the better, during our university days. Somehow, maybe after we all graduated, people, went, their attention was divided. Other people actually left the shores of this country. So, and some of our colleagues then, because it was getting difficult for us to organize and relate with the younger ones, so the tempo actually, fizzled out. But, based on what is going on in this country, I thought that we actually represented the vanguard, that if we had actually intensified our efforts, Nigeria of today would have been better than what it is at the moment.
Absolutely. We both have very similar history in that regard. Before we start talking about the crisis in the university, how was it like running universities? You ran University of Abuja and the State University in Sokoto.
That's right.
How was that experience?
Let me put it in context. When I went to, when I graduated from Bayero University, I actually made a first class degree, but also because of certain petty politics, which going by the standard practice, in the late 70s and early 80s, the university, my Bayero University was supposed to automatically give me employment.
Yes.
Yes, but I didn't get it because it was assumed that late Bala Mohammed, Dr. Bala Mohammed, which is different from Bala Osman, who was one of our teachers in Bayrou, and somebody from Bauchi, is late now. He actually died in the crisis of 1980-81
yeah.
in Kano. They said his boys, some of us who aspire to actually take up teaching in the university.
You are considered too radical.
Too radical, so I didn't get it. I had to go back to Okene to go to, Kwara State then. Okene was part of the old Kwara State. I went back and I got a job to go and teach in a secondary school, under the schools board, which I did for 1 year, and eventually I got appointed to University of Sokoto, as it was called then, before it came to Osman Danfodio University. And I think from that point, the progressive development and improvement in my academic life or scholarship, actually took off. I got to Sokoto after 1 year, and that was also the time there were resources. We were automatically after 1 year of
coursework.
Yes, in the system. They sent us. I went to University of Toronto to have my master's, and then I came back, taught for 1 year. While I was at University of Toronto, I got federal scholarship to go and do my PhD at University of Sussex in Britain, and that's how the trajectory of my academic scholarship went. And I came back in 1989, and since then I taught, did research, published, and at the time I became head of Department of Political Science. I also became the Dean of the Faculty of Social Science and Management, and also the coordinator of 4 faculties because of the collegiate system that was in place in Osman Danfodio University then. And eventually also I rose to become the Deputy Vice Chancellor in Osman Danfodio before getting appointed as a Vice Chancellor in University of Abuja under the regime of General Olusegun Obasanjo. And I had a 5-year stint as Vice Chancellor, which concluded also my tenure. And one of the things I think I would say was that all this period, there was, to a large extent, adequate funding of the universities. And we were, during my undergraduate days, if there was any crisis, it was mainly student crisis, not academic staff. And the crisis will only emanate from the fact that we are not being given, what we consider to be, our food must be standard. That was the point. It was just merely, existential issues, not about our academic pursuit. The teachers were there, and we also had the opportunity, the luck of getting lecturers from outside the country, teaching us then. So there was, and that actually allows scholarship to flourish in the Nigerian university system. And it was like that up till even the time, some of the time we went through structural adjustment program.
Yes.
It was still, the impact of underfunding, dereliction in academic, activities. They were just starting then, but we still coped and make sure that we rescue it. Not academic. There was nothing like academic. Lecturers going on strike. We didn't experience it, and that was what I also aimed at to a very large extent. When I became the Vice Chancellor at University of Abuja, we were still getting subventions that were reasonable enough to help us, carry out our mandate. But, it was also very, we really had to get, people who are committed, because I also discovered that at that point, some of our colleagues, were actually not as committed. People were even thinking that coming into academia was a last bus stop for them. Instead of actually seeing it as the takeoff point, for in terms of what is it they can contribute to, the development of the university system. So I think the degeneracy in academic situation, both scholarship both mentorship, teaching and what have you, became, crisis of, this Fourth Republic that we're under.
Explain to our viewers what's really the nature of the crisis in the university system today.
Let me start by saying that, I observed that at the point we went into the economic crunch, which started very seriously under the General Ibrahim Babangida's administration, with the devaluation of the currency, the structural adjustment program, which actually was operated or implemented in the manner dictated by the World Bank and the IMF. These two global imperialist institutions that insisted that we have to devalue the currency, we have to expose our economy to uncontrollable imports and so on. We are not actually producing anything of worth that we could sell to even match what we are, or at least to give us the foreign exchange to import what we are doing. So the country was driven into recession, driven into inflationary situation, and the government simply could not meet its the demands of the institutions. And it's unfortunate that the crisis was allowed to degenerate, because by then, how many universities were owned by the federal government? As of today, we are talking of 49 federal institutions. And even these 49 we're talking about, I find it difficult to understand why you should have University of Army when you have NDA. This is one of the things about, the unregulated...
And now University of Air Force, University of Navy.
Yeah, University of Transportation. I mean, all this nonsense that we're having, I don't really understand. I can understand, if you decide to duplicate the number of universities of agriculture, because this country is still largely an agricultural economy. Okay, but what is the Nigerian University of Army? What does it? What level of defense knowledge is it going to provide that NDA cannot provide, which is also a university? So it is now a question of individuals coming up with their own selfish interest to get institutions that are not required, and integrate this into the tertiary institution, especially of the university sort, and create problems for because the resources are not there.
Yeah. So the first problem is that we've allowed too many universities to emerge. What's the next problem?
And they are not well catered for. Government did not think deeply before accepting that to set up those institutions. The second thing is also the fact that because of the decrease in funding, academic work is actually not also taking place on a very rigorous and serious basis. I had an experience when I was a vice chancellor in University of Abuja. A lecturer of mine, he actually went through this, the procedure of, getting to be assessed for professorship. It went through the department, the faculty, and the Central Appointments and Promotion Committee, consideration of, whether or not somebody is qualified to be recommended for professorship. And then his papers were sent to my office. And we also, made sure that, we did the needful, which was that as much as possible, the individual who was being assessed should not know to whom his papers or her papers will be sent to. But we did this, and somehow this guy mysteriously got to know from, I'm sure it was leaked to him from my office, that this was, his paper was sent to, in fact, it was a late Professor Aaron Ghana, that his papers were sent to in Jos. And he pursued it to his office in Jos to find out, whether he had seen it and whether he was going to write a favorable report on his behalf.
That's unethical.
But that's the point. So unluckily for him, when he went, Ghana was not even in the country. So he discussed this with the secretary. When he came back, and the matter was reported to him, and he quickly called me on the phone and he said, "Prof, what is happening in your institution? I said, what's happening, sir? I mean, as a senior colleague. I said, what's happening, sir? He said, your candidate, for assessment to the rank of a professor, got his, came to my office to ask whether this thing was being done properly. I said, I never knew this. And in any case, please just return his papers back to us, and I will do the needful. And indeed, he did. He sent the papers back, and I said, until, even as long as I remain on this seat as the vice chancellor, his papers will never see the light. Go for any assessment. But of course, when I left, have individuals who sometimes also will not even follow the etiquette, of rigorous scholarship. They allow his papers to pass through at a point, and he became a professor in the system. So we have corruption that also, came into, the scheme of things in the university system, and that has really made some of the professors will not even go to teach. They will also not assess the students. In fact, some of them will assess on the basis of how much was paid to them. So these unethical behaviors also, eroded the sanctity of the university system. So it's not a question, in fact, but I'm so happy that ASU as a body frowned at this very seriously. And in fact, they put mechanisms to check, the erosion of, profound scholarship on the campuses. But that was not enough. So the combination of, inadequate funding, and also the fact that, universities were not able to even recruit lecturers. I told you when I was in the university, we had foreign lecturers who also actually, brought their own, very essential, input into making what some of us, our generation, including yourself, and myself, in our generation, experience. We got scholars from outside, and we also had opportunities of going outside, to go and, in pursuit of our scholarly endeavors. But all those things, a lot of people now, generally, except in fact, also when ASU struggle very well to get a TED fund, put in place, which has actually created some, level of, rehabilitation, I will put it that way, in the system. Otherwise, government simply abandoned education system. And what is even the matter? Every budget year, this country has never, since, let's say from the 1980s to date, has never actually, been able to devote as much as 10% of the annual budget. And this is contrary to even the suggestion or advice by UNESCO that each, country should at least try to spend not less than 26% of the annual budget on education.
Yes.
So the crisis, and in our own case, as I said earlier, is compounded by the fact that we have very, myopic and, leadership that, clearly do not appreciate what education is all about. In fact, I'm even so worried that, especially under the, I don't know whether you are going to look at the last strike as an area. Otherwise, I would have said, that, the current, the latest crisis we have of the prolonged 8-month, strike in the entire Nigerian public system, public education, tertiary education system, to have been closed down for 8 months, which is virtually a whole session.
Yeah, it's an academic year.
It's an academic year, that's right. So it actually also shows that government is not bothered about, education. So the attitude of those in government is actually, one of the major sources of crisis in the system. And, for a government also that says, they want to remove 100 million people from poverty, how do you think you can get out of poverty? Is it through, the type of agricultural system that we are practicing now that is still pre-modern, that we are going to, get people out? People are producing for subsistence largely.
Yeah.
Good. So you don't have mechanized farming on a large scale. You don't have agricultural, agro-industrial, development on a large scale. And you are talking about removing 100 million people from poverty. How are you going to do it? What is the magic? I think, our leaders simply come up with, what I call, a brain wave. And this idea comes to them, and they begin to now, trumpet, here and there, well, this is what we're going to do. And at the end of the day, there is no consistent policy to also follow up with such brainwave ideas.
Our viewers, we are taking a short break. We'll be right back.
That's great. Good to see you.
Viewers, you are welcome back to the program. Today we are having a conversation with Professor Nuhu Yakub on the crisis in Nigeria's public universities and the way forward. Prof, ASU has become a major stakeholder, actor, player in Nigeria's university system. What's your general evaluation of the role ASU has played so far?
Let me say that, I came off from the position of saying ASU should not go on strike, because knowledge is not something you can stop from taking place, even for a second. That has been my position. ASU should not go on strike. So you can't come and say, today, I'll stop giving knowledge to those students under me. But I now also have graduated from this position to one in which I earnestly support ASU strike. It's not because I have retired, but it's because I have seen the insincerity of those in government. They are not serious about, solving the problems of education generally, and then public tertiary institutions in particular. And I think that, without the consensus role ASU leadership or ASU membership generally, have been able to play, it will have been, in fact, what we're even witnessing now will have been worse than this. ASU came up with the idea of, tax, 2% tax of, companies operating in Nigeria, towards, development of education, which is actually the main source of funding, especially capital projects in the university system.
From the TED Fund?
From the TED Fund, yes. Go to the campuses, public institutions, both state universities, state colleges of education, state polytechnics, and federal universities and polytechnics. The only, I'm happy that, TED Fund has insisted that any money of theirs that is used in putting up a structure, that structure should be named, after them. Because, without that, and the credit of this will actually go to ASU. I'm unapologetic about this position. ASU has done very well in terms of now, making sure that, yes, whatever is required in terms of, making sure that, it conscientizes, Nigeria, the opinion of Nigerian leaders or people generally to see that, there is adequate funding to education. Government has to review its policy, or the lack of policy. Let me put it that way, on education, the education sector. There must be effort put in place, seen generally by everybody, that government is serious about education And that means that the annual budget, going to education should at least hit the minimum limit of 20%. I'm not even talking of 26% now, 20%. More money should be going to take into, because we cannot actually think of advancing technology, advancing development, lifting people 100 million, which is even just a mere savior, because it's very clear now that government is not serious about it. You can't lift even 10 million people from poverty in this country the way we are handling education. There must be adequate funding of education if you want to, you want to actually get, what is required, or the derivables from education. So for me, ASU has done the right thing this time around.
But people say ASU loves long strikes.
No,
and
it's
they
not
keep
ASU.
the students away from the university.
The president of ASU said it, and I believe what he has said. It will not take more than 1 week to resolve this crisis. If government will be sincere, please let me even pose this question. I'm not asking you to answer the question, but the question is that, can we see any seriousness from the Minister of Labor? He handled it very poorly, and he showed actually that he's not competent to even hold that office. Is it also in reference to the Minister of Education? He also didn't handle it very competently. And it shows very clearly that, he has not also understood the responsibility of that office. This was somebody during the time when ASU went on strike, during the regime of Jonathan, who was saying that the strike by ASU was patriotic. That was the person who was now coming to, destroy ASU, that was so patriotic about, the demand. And at the same time, we were saying, he was now trying to destroy, make sure that, ASU case was not handled diligently. He was, found to have gone to attend the graduation ceremony of his children overseas. Is that not the contradiction?
Absolutely.
Good. So these two gentlemen, in fact, they are the ones that actually prolonged the strike. ASU didn't like long strike. And as I was saying, the president of ASU said, 2 days, within 1 week, we can resolve this matter. Come and tell us, government, what is it on the basis of the 2009 agreement you cannot implement. And you give evidence that you cannot do so. It is this country where government cannot fund education adequately. Somebody is accused of, stealing. Yes, because it's amounted to stealing over 109 billion naira. What is happening to the gentleman?
He's in court.
Well, I have told a forum. I said, we are not serious about even tackling the problem of corruption in this country. Government should be able to, jettison what is called rule of law and come up with, if you like, you call it, a very harsh, legislation on corruption. Anybody who, for the gentleman who was told, who has, since the case is still in court, we say allegedly, stolen, 109 billion naira. Let him, if he cannot, in the court there should be a law that says that kind of person, if he cannot defend his case, or if he's not acquitted, should simply be, taken to the gallows. Let him, his life, and if we begin to take drastic and draconian measures to tackle corruption, a lot of people will be afraid to lose their lives.
The problem of saying people who have engaged in massive levels of corruption should be killed for their action. Often, the most corrupt people are the people in government.
Let's finish them. What is their use? That's the point.
They should be killed one by one.
Oh, my goodness. I have no apologies to make for this statement, honestly speaking, because the corruption, even by the president, he said, if you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill you. It's killing Nigerians. So those who are involved should also be killed before the evil kills every Nigerian.
Yes.
Why is it, as I said, I am fully, not because I've retired, I'm still, I mean, I still have one leg, because sometimes I get engaged in, going to give lectures here and there. So people should, ASU should be congratulated for the, patriotic role they have played in recent years. In recent years, this was not how it was. I told you when we were in the university, in fact, it was, we will go to the dining hall then. How much is it were we paying for breakfast? 10 kobo.
25 kobo.
5 kobo, 10 kobo. Then dinner, 20 kobo also. Yes. And, as I said, in our own time, the strike was not between ASU and government. It was between students and those who are catering for, the management of each university. If they do not provide, delicious meals, we will go on strike. But nobody talks about even the level of, the standard of eating of, undergraduates these days. And everybody, the nutritionists would say that good meals, are also source of good health for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the students are not having it. So, we will have a situation where, that's why the number of people are thinking, our graduates, when they come out of Nigerian universities, they are underperforming. But these are students who will go outside the country and perform based on the knowledge they have acquired from Nigeria. So, I think there is a lot to be done in education. My perspective is that we need to have a summit on education. And this summit must be a very serious one that will try for the last time, if I may put it that way, to address the problem of education. Because the problems are multidimensional.
Exactly, that was my next question. Because primary school education, especially for the children of the poor, that is public primary schools, have basically collapsed. Public secondary schools are basically collapsed. So you can't have a good university system if primary and secondary schools are not of quality.
You are correct. You are correct. Because as they always say, a good foundation is, the bedrock of, a standing structure. As I said, when we went to primary school, our teachers, not a lot of them didn't also have degrees or advanced certificates like NCE certificates, when we were taught by them. But there was commitment, and also, the resources that were available, were judiciously used, and we combined our learning with also practical knowledge of how we can exist without, even if you don't go to secondary school, you come out of secondary school, you go and learn carpentry work or whatever, at least you have, the basic knowledge of how to measure, what, chair you are going to, produce as a carpenter, and so on and so forth. So what is required is that we need, as I said, a summit on education in this country. And we also have to now ask ourselves this question: what is the aim, or what is the objective of the education we want? What kind of education system do we want to put in place?
Well, that's actually my next question, because we are moving towards an election.
Yeah.
There will be a new president, there will be new governors in most of the states. So this is the time to talk about the program for uplifting the educational sector. What are the elements of that program that these candidates should be talking about today?
That they should actually be concerned about our education system. If there is anything at all that should take the primary position in their agenda for the development of this country, is education. Because with education, you tackle the problem of poverty, the problem of disease, and also the problem of, general development. And in fact, if education is addressed, I'm sure we're going to cut down on the cost of some of the other services that government or governments of the various levels in this country provide. Yes, because what is happening is that instead of devoting, the required resources, these resources have been stolen, and that's why I was so I was so emphatic about what kind of punishment should be given to those who are found to be corrupt, or who have who have used their office for corrupt purposes. You don't have to spare them. So we need to rescue this country from corruption. We cannot do so when we have, most of us educated. I just imagine now, Professor Jiwo, if I did not go to school, what would life have been by now in life? Uneducated, uninformed, and very likely at my age now, I'll be having people, younger than me dictating, how I should live my life. It's impossible now. No, people I relate with now cannot, nobody will come and tell me that, you don't know what you are doing, you are a stupid old man. No. It's very difficult. So education is the one that will lift everybody from poverty, from ignorance, towards development and advancement. So whatever we are going to do, if we do not take all the politicians that are aiming at becoming a president, I think the Nigerian people should question them. What is it they have as their agenda for education? And if it is not something that is going to revive, indeed, I wouldn't mind if we can take the standard of education back to the 50s. In spite of the limitations of that standard of education for that period of time, we are talking of technology now, innovation, high. So it is but of course, if we are able to invest a great deal in education, it's just a question of, a second. People, especially the kind of children we are having now, with the various gadgets that they can manipulate to get certain solutions, some of them which are going to actually be injurious to the society. But we have them, they have the knowledge, and from time to time there are also countermeasures to avoid the negative aspects of education some of them might have acquired. And therefore, this country can be put on the path to development and progress. I don't see that happening, if we continue to take education, with levity, treat it with levity, and do whatever we are doing to education now. And let me also say one thing. When I was in secondary school, in the School of Arabic Studies in Kano, we were day students. Government, this happens, was, because by 67, there was no more the one north. But before
states have been created.
Yes, states have been created. But by the time we were there, the policy that was inherited by the regimes, by the leaders of that period, continued. We were day students. We had no accommodation on the campus, so we rented our rooms in the town, and government was committed to paying us allowance. I remember I was being paid £4.11 every month to take care of.
That was a lot of money at that time. That was a lot of,
exactly. Then the leaders, our principals, were very honest people. Because if it is now, we'll have been shortchanged. Instead of the £4.11, they'll give us £2, and we'll say, government did not provide as much as as they promised.
Yes.
So you can see how that period where corruption was minimal, or probably even non-existent. Let me put it that way. We benefited, and it is that benefit that made us the pride of the nation at the moment. But where we allow corruption to overwhelm everybody, and everybody is being suspect because, they have various ways of cutting corners. I am saying that, without dealing with corruption, and without also, you are part of the Justice Ways Committee. You people came up with one idea, which, I have actually adopted, that the mindset of Nigerians, especially towards political violence, is something that needs to be changed.
Yes.
The mindset of Nigerians towards corruption needs to be changed.
But tell me something. When Buhari was campaigning to come into power, his main focus and determination was to combat corruption. And Nigerians believed he was sincere. He came in, he failed. The Minister of Education, throughout his time as a journalist, opinion leader, was committed to ASU and improving the university system. He's been minister for almost 8 years, and he has failed. So what is the problem? Why do people come with promises that they do not fulfill?
Because they are not sincere. They are not sincere. Because a sincere person, takes, promises they make as, holistic, as something that, is a covenant they have, signed with God. And when they get the opportunity to put it in practice, they will do so. That is the major, point. I don't think that Buhari, or just as you said, he's not sincere. He's not sincere. If he was sincere, all the things he said he was going to do, not just curbing corruption or stopping it, but also that, economy will, have, a different direction.
Security.
Every aspect of his major programs, the most fundamental programs that, saw him get into power, have not been achieved. So I think there is a problem of incompetence at that level. I mean, we have to call a spade now, because for me, at my age also, Nigeria is for all of us. It's not for any single individual. And if you made a covenant with Nigerian people, you have to fulfill it. Yes. And if you are not capable of doing so, then we'll have to condemn you for not fulfilling it. And that is what I'm doing, giving this opportunity. I mean, Buhari should accept. In fact, come to think of it, recently the wife was apologizing to Nigerians. Sorry, we were unable to deliver. But Buhari has never even said so. We expect him to say it, even at the point of exit, that I'm sorry, I promise Nigerians.
But what he said is that he's done very well.
Oh, no. He said he's playing with words. At his age, he's playing with words. No, he can't say so. I mean, only people who are, benefiting from maybe his largesse that I have said that, what he's saying is correct. It's not correct. He has not done anything very well. Ima is below, pass mark. I mean, if I go by the system of awarding grades in the university, his performance is less than 40%. He failed.
Well, on this note about the failure of the Buhari administration, we'll conclude this program. It has been very, very worthwhile discussing with Professor Nuhu Yakub about the crisis in Nigeria's university system. And he has emphasized a certain number of issues. The first is that you don't produce more universities that you can fund and support. And the government made a huge mistake going beyond its means in establishing universities. The second issue is sincerity in terms of the conduct of its relationship with the university system. Government has been unable to negotiate its way out of strikes, to negotiate with sincerity and purpose. Professor Nuhu Yakub has also made the point that part of the crisis of Nigeria's political system is that people lack competence and they lack sincerity in the conduct of government affairs. Let's hope that with the next election coming around in just a few months' time, we'll get a new breed of leaders that will have both competence and sincerity. Thank you, Professor Nuhu Yakub.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay.